For decades, we've all been told the same thing: save and invest enough that one day you can have a portfolio that can support you in retirement. But when we look at real-world retirees, that narrative sort of falls apart. What we see in real-world retirees is that they're not withdrawing 4% of their portfolio every single year. Heck, many of retirees aren't even touching their investments at all. And for those who do, their withdrawal is quite small, somewhere in the ballpark of 1 to 2%, and it's often done irregular at best. Retirees are not pulling a fixed paycheck out of their accounts every year. They're dipping in strategically, situationally, and on their own terms. So here's the real question, and one that I see in the comments section over and over again. If retirees aren't living off their investments, what are they actually living on? Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. This is where I think we need to fundamentally reframe how we talk about retirement, because the financial industry spends an enormous amount of time focusing on portfolio size, but very little time discussing how retirement works in the real world. So today, I want to walk through where retirees really get their income, why portfolios are often a supporting actor, not the star, and how this should change the way we think about retirement planning, especially if you're younger. We'll look at the data, we'll talk about the behavior, and then we'll go through a decade-by-decade framework, which might help you think about this broadly. Here's the distinction most people miss. Investment returns are about rate of return on capital. Income growth is about scale and optionality. They show up very differently in retirement. Social Security, pensions, work income, these often show up as guaranteed and often lifelong income streams, whereas investments often create flexibility and more probable income. Both matter, but they play different roles. According to the Health and Retirement Study, this is how income breaks down for the typical adult age 65 and older. About 28% comes from Social Security, 26% comes from personal retirement accounts, including pensions and annuities, 24% comes from continued work, 14% comes from investments, and about 8% comes from other sources. Now, I want to pause for a minute and talk about two categories that sound similar but are actually different. We have personal retirement accounts, and then we have investments. Personal retirement accounts include things like 401ks and IRA, but they also include defined benefit pensions and annuities. This category represents income that people expect to receive in retirement. Often, it's on a regular schedule. It could be defined, but it's planned and expected. Investments, on the other hand, are different. This category includes brokerage accounts, capital gains, dividends, and interest income. This type of income has a bit more optionality to it. It's income you might use when you choose to, but it might not really be used to cover everyday essentials. And this type of distinction matters because it might help to explain the safe withdrawal disconnect, because what we see is that the vast majority of retirees are not living solely on their investment income. For many retirees, Social Security and pension make up a great share of their income, or continued work. And we see that investments get layered in for flexibility. They're not relied on heavily. And that's why average withdrawal rates are low, why many retirees don't withdraw consistently, and portfolios often last longer than traditional models predict. The data tells us something critical. The vast majority of retirees are not living solely on their investment income. Rather, they're living on layers of income. For most retirees, Social Security is not extra. It often covers 30 to 80% or more of spending, depending on income level and household structure. For about half of retirees, it covers the majority of their essential expenses. It serves as an income floor. It's inflation protected and it's paid for life. This combination is incredibly powerful, and it's especially dominant for single retirees, elderly women, and for lower and middle income households. But another category that's just as important here, even for high-income dual-earner married couples, Social Security still plays a foundational role. Two strong benefits could easily translate into 70 or 80,000 or even six figures of inflation-adjusted guaranteed income for life. And while that may not cover this couple's entire retirement, it certainly goes a long way to reducing the pressure on their investments. And this shows for nearly all retirees, Social Security is really the bedrock that everything else gets built on. Pensions, while declining, are still structurally powerful. Roughly 30 to 40% of today's retirees receive some form of pension income. The share is higher for older retirees than it is for younger ones, but it's still meaningful. And where a pension exists, it matters a lot. For those households, pensions often cover core living expenses, function like a second Social Security check, and dramatically reduce the need to withdraw from investments. In those situations, often the portfolio doesn't have to act like a paycheck. It gets to play a supporting role. And again, this also helps to explain why those withdrawal rates we see are so low for today's retirees. This is often where misunderstanding has a way of creeping in. First, pension coverage is much higher among older retirees. For those in their late 70s or their 80s, it's often 40% or higher that are receiving a pension. Many worked in an era where defined benefit plans were more common, and those retirees today have a way of skewing the retirement stats. Second, pension coverage is much lower for younger retirees. For people retiring today, and especially those over the next 10 to 15 years, pension coverage drops closer to 20 to 25%, and it's concentrated in military, public sector, and union jobs. So pensions are certainly no longer the norm, but they also haven't disappeared. Third, pensions are unevenly distributed. They're far more common among higher earners, long-tenured workers, government and military retirees, and married households where at least one spouse has a pension. This kind of creates a two-track retirement reality, where many retirees have no pension income at all, and then we have some retirees who do have a pension, and it serves as a very strong income floor. So you can expect that over time there will be a gradual shift over the next 10 to